Here again, JustProfessor. You think people can tell what you're feeling just by looking at you. You think your nervousness is obvious. You think everyone knows when you're lying or faking confidence, but they can't tell. You're way less transparent than you think, and this misunderstanding is making your life harder than it needs to be. Imagine you're giving a presentation and you're incredibly nervous. Your heart is racing. You feel like you're shaking. You're convinced everyone in the room can tell how anxious you are. But after the presentation, people tell you that you seemed confident and calm. You're shocked because you felt so obviously nervous. This is the illusion of transparency. You think your internal state is visible to others when actually they can't see nearly as much as you think they can. Your feelings are loud and obvious to you, so you assume they're loud and obvious to everyone else. They're not. The illusion of transparency is when you overestimate how much your internal experiences, emotions, thoughts, intentions are apparent to other people. You feel something strongly, so you assume it shows on your face and in your behavior. You think something, so you assume people can read it in your expression. You intend something, so you assume your intentions are clear to observers. But other people can't actually see inside your head. They only see your external behavior, which reveals way less than you think it does. This happens because you have full access to your internal experience. You feel every flutter of anxiety, every twinge of anger, every moment of attraction. Those feelings are vivid and consuming to you. So your brain assumes they must be just as obvious externally as they are internally. But they're not. Other people don't have access to your internal experience. They only see a small fraction of what's going on inside you. The problem is this illusion affects how you act. You avoid situations because you think everyone will see your nervousness. You think you're being obvious when you lie, so you give yourself away by acting guilty. You assume your crush knows you like them when they have no idea. You think your boss knows you're struggling when actually they think you're fine. The illusion of transparency creates social anxiety, miscommunication, and missed opportunities. Let me show you where this plays out. Public speaking is the most obvious example. When you speak in front of people, you're hyper-aware of your nervousness. You feel your voice shaking, your hands trembling, your face getting hot. You're absolutely convinced the audience can see all of this, so you apologize for being nervous or you rush through your talk trying to end the discomfort. But studies show that audiences usually can't tell when speakers are nervous unless the speaker is extremely anxious or explicitly tells them. Your internal experience of anxiety is massive, but the external signs are subtle. Your voice might shake slightly, but not nearly as much as it feels like from inside. Your hands might tremble, but the audience is too far away to notice. Your face feels hot, but it probably doesn't look that flushed. The illusion of transparency makes you think everyone sees your anxiety when actually, most of it is invisible. Dating and attraction suffer from this massively. You develop feelings for someone and you're convinced it's obvious. You think you're being so transparent with your interests that they must know. So you're confused and hurt when they don't reciprocate. But actually, they had no idea you were interested. What felt like obvious flirting to you looked like normal, friendly behavior to them. The illusion of transparency made you think you were broadcasting your feelings when actually you were being way more subtle than you realized. Or the opposite happens. Someone is interested in you and you think they're just being friendly because their interest isn't obvious to you. But to them, they feel like they're being incredibly obvious. Both people are experiencing the illusion of transparency, thinking their own internal state is clearer than it is while underestimating how much others are hiding. Lying and deception show this bias clearly. When people lie, they think they're being obviously dishonest. They feel guilty, so they assume that guilt shows on their face. This makes them act suspicious, which actually does give them away. But the lie itself usually isn't obvious. It's their reaction to the illusion of transparency that makes them look guilty. They act like everyone can tell they're lying, and that behavior makes people suspicious. Job interviews demonstrate this. You're nervous in an interview and you think it's completely obvious. You think you're coming across as incompetent. but interviewers usually can't tell how nervous you are unless you explicitly mention it. The illusion of transparency makes you think your anxiety is ruining the interview when actually, you're probably coming across fine. Classroom situations show this with students. A student doesn't understand something but thinks their confusion is obvious, so they're embarrassed to ask questions. They assume the teacher and other students can all see their confusion. But actually, no one has any idea they're struggling. The student sits there confused, thinking everyone knows, when actually asking the question would reveal that many other students were also confused and just not asking. Medical settings have this problem. Patients feel pain or symptoms and assume doctors can tell how severe it is. But doctors can't feel what you're feeling. If you don't explicitly describe your symptoms, doctors might underestimate what you're experiencing. The illusion of transparency makes patients think their suffering is obvious when they actually need to communicate it clearly. Work performance gets affected by this. You're struggling with something at work and you think it's obvious to your manager. You assume they know you're having trouble and you're embarrassed about it. But your manager has no idea you're struggling because the illusion of transparency isn't reality. If you don't communicate your difficulties, no one knows about them. Relationship conflicts get worse because of this bias. You're upset about something and you think your partner should obviously know. You've been giving signals, being quiet, looking annoyed, making comments. To you, it's incredibly obvious what's wrong. But your partner genuinely has no idea. The signals that feel screaming loud to you are barely noticeable to them. So you get more upset that they're ignoring the obvious problem when actually the problem isn't obvious at all. So how do you adjust for the illusion of transparency? How do you communicate better when you understand that people can't read your mind? First, communicate explicitly instead of assuming people know. If you're upset, say you're upset and why. If you're interested in someone, make it clear. If you need help at work, ask for it. Don't rely on subtle signals and assume they're obvious. They're not obvious to others even though they feel obvious to you. Second, remember that your anxiety probably isn't as visible as it feels. When you're nervous about public speaking or a social situation, remind yourself that the internal experience is way more intense than the external appearance. This knowledge can help reduce anxiety because you're not worried about everyone seeing your nervousness. Third, be more direct about positive feelings too. If you appreciate someone, tell them. If you're excited about something, express it. The illusion of transparency works both ways. People can't tell when you're happy or grateful unless you show it clearly. Don't assume your positive feelings are obvious. Fourth, ask for feedback to calibrate your transparency. Ask trusted people if they could tell how you were feeling in different situations. You'll probably discover that you're way less transparent than you thought. This helps you adjust your assumptions about what others can see. Fifth, don't act on the assumption that you've already been obvious. If you haven't explicitly communicated something, don't assume people know it through hints or signals. Start from the assumption that you need to state things clearly rather than hoping people pick up on subtleties. Sixth, extend this understanding to others. Just like you're less transparent than you think, so is everyone else. When someone seems fine, they might be struggling internally. When someone seems uninterested, they might be interested but hiding it. Don't assume you can read others accurately just because their internal state seems obvious. The illusion of transparency is making you think you're an open book when actually you're mostly closed. You feel your emotions so strongly that you assume they're written all over your face. You think your thoughts so clearly that you assume they show in your expressions. You experience your intentions so vividly that you assume they're obvious in your actions. But other people can't see any of that. They only see your external behavior, which shows way less than you think. This creates all kinds of problems. You avoid social situations thinking everyone will see your anxiety. You don't express interest in people thinking you've already made it obvious. You suffer in silence thinking everyone knows you're struggling. You get frustrated when people don't respond to signals you think are clear, all because you overestimate how transparent you are. Understanding this bias helps in two ways. First, it reduces social anxiety. You're not as obviously nervous as you feel. Your embarrassing moments aren't as visible as they seem. Your awkwardness isn't screaming out to everyone around you. Most of what feels massive to you is invisible to others. Second, it improves communication. When you know people can't read your mind, you communicate more explicitly. You state your needs instead of hinting. You express your feelings instead of expecting people to notice. You ask for help instead of assuming people know you need it. You're less transparent than you think. Your feelings aren't written on your face. Your thoughts aren't obvious in your eyes. Your intentions aren't clear in your actions. And that's actually good news because it means you're not as exposed as you fear. But it also means you need to communicate more directly than you think you do. Watch the next video to learn about another social bias distorting your interactions.